This is not a cute hashtag. This is not a marketing gimmick. This is not a dramatic statement to draw on the reader. This is not a ploy to gain more followers. This is a confession. This is an apology. This is a testimony. And this is a promise. A promise to turn away and not continue on the same destructive path I once was on. This is a heart issue. This is not just a promise to women and families, but to myself.
Holy Wild Birth is a podcast embracing the reclamation of giving birth, rooted in God's original design, undisturbed.
Here, we share homebirth stories highlighting God's presence as the great midwife, as well as conversations about all aspects of a holistic, spirit-led childbearing year. From the perspectives of myself, traditional midwife Lauren Hall of Rooted in Eden Private Contract Association,
and me, holistic doula and birth keeper Brooke Collier of Sister Birth.
To choose a holy wild birth journey is to consecrate all your decisions unto the Lord.
And to reclaim creation unadulterated by centuries of human attempts to control and improve upon what God has already called good.
Please remember, birth is not a medical event, but a natural process. We are not your care providers, and this should not be taken as medical advice.
As we dive into today's birth story, just a reminder that the choices and beliefs of the mamas sharing their stories here are as individual and varied as the storyteller herself, and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or recommended actions of Lauren and or Brooke.
Welcome to Holy Wild Birth. Today I am sitting here with Hannah, and she is a dear friend of mine who I just recently really got to know and just adore her. And I wanted to really let her share her story. So about, a week ago or so, maybe two, you shared a phenomenal post and made t-shirts that said, "I do not midwife with the government." And I know there's a lot of backstory to that. I know a lot of people made assumptions of what that meant. And yeah, I just want to talk a little bit more about that and give you some space to share more. So welcome, Hannah.
Thanks so much, Lauren. I'm feeling really excited to be asked to share my story, and it's a huge privilege and an honor. I have been listening to the podcast and recommending it to midwife friends and trying to share it as much as possible because I just think it's such a valuable space and platform. So yes, I did share a post of, I can't remember, 2 or 3 weeks ago. I had been feeling a little tug on my heart. I think probably for about 6 or 8 weeks before that I wanted to create these shirts. And I think when I shared the post, a lot of people locally, since I've arrived in the US, so for a little backstory, I moved to the US from Australia back at the beginning of April. I am obviously a midwife, and my husband is a teacher, and we worked for the Queensland government. So I worked for Queensland Health. In Australia, it's very similar to the UK, where we have public health care and we pay for it through our taxes, and everyone can access all the same kind of health care. So I was a midwife with government health, and my husband was a high school teacher with government education.
Okay.
And Queensland specifically. And we both lost our jobs due to the vaccine mandates in Australia. And I think initially when I released my post, a lot of people who knew me on my feed thought that I was speaking to that, which was a really interesting phenomenon because it certainly was not the driving force behind behind those shirts at all.
Yeah.
And I think even some of those people that were closest to me kind of misunderstood it. And they, because, there's been all these other shirts that have come out, like, I don't co-parent with the government. But truthfully, in other countries, and now starting in the US, we've been midwifing with the government for a really long time.
Yeah, we have.
And that's actually what I was talking about. So I guess regulatory bodies making decisions for midwives in how we practice, who we practice with, gagging us at times.
Yeah. That's
a big one. I probably could speak a whole podcast just about that one.
Right.
But that's what I was speaking about. So I started my midwifery training in the beginning of 2012. I home birthed 3 out of my 4 babies, and I was one of the women that really pushed for Medicare funding, eligibility, and recognition of home birth in Australia. So I was one of the women and mothers that drove to Canberra, rallied around with signs asking the government to please help fund the cost of home birthing in the same way that maternity care was free for all women in the hospital system. Why shouldn't it be subsidized by the government at home? And the idea behind that, the driving force from midwives, was that home birth should be accessible to all women. Right. And I truly believe that with all my heart.
Yeah.
So
where did that break down?
It broke down pretty quick. No, actually, it was a real process where it broke down over the course of a few years. So I think I really got involved with that campaign in 2010. The midwife that I had from my 3rd baby was really involved in it. And I was driving all over the countryside, going to rallies with her that she was involved in. So that was probably when it all started, was in 2010. In 2012, I decided to study midwifery. In Australia, there was really only the option of a midwifery degree at a university level. Okay. So I chose the most woman-centered version of that. I chose Griffith University because that was known for having lecturers that were all private practicing midwives, mostly from New Zealand. I started the course, really enjoyed the content, struggled to find apprenticeships. They all had to be hospital-based apprenticeships. However, Griffith, if you could find a private midwife that you could follow through with an apprenticeship, they would also count that. So I thought, wow, I'm so blessed and grateful to have this opportunity. Shortly after that, midwifery eligibility, Medicare eligibility, came into place. Okay. And midwives started to jump through the hoops that the government required of them. And then it meant that there was very few opportunities for me to attend home births as a apprentice student midwife. So I accepted that and thought, but it's going to get better from here. They're just figuring it out, right?
So the healthcare subsidy towards the midwives basically made them not be able to take on apprenticeships. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, not so much that. So the university required that I could only work with the Medicare eligible and endorsed midwife, which is where the licensing part came in. So you could
then, I'm following now.
So midwives were like transferring over at this point. They had like a window of grace.
Preceptors that you could sit under.
Yes.
Okay, I'm with you.
So we were kind of getting through that, and I thought, they're going to figure this out. Like, it's going to get better from here. And these little midwifery boutiques started popping up everywhere, and I won't mention names when it comes to that. But I think if you're involved in the home birthing scene in Australia, you'll know who they are. Mm-hmm. And we all thought that was great. They started taking on students at these
like little birth centers, or what is a midwifery boutique?
It wasn't a birth center. It was like a collective of home birth midwives who had all become eligible and endorsed, which was, our form of licensing. Right. And they had all jumped through the hoops in terms of the hoops that were required were that you had to take a prescribing course through, at the time, there was only one accredited university to offer that. Very quickly, Griffith took that on too. So there was a second choice, which we all applauded. Like, all these universities are coming on board to support the private midwives in their licensing requirements.
It looks so pretty from the outside, doesn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
It was also attractive. Next thing you know, there was, I can't even remember how many of these midwifery centers popped up. So essentially it was like a collective and an office. And I think the vision for a lot of those home birth midwives is it would kind of be a one-stop shop. You know, lots of them started working with like chiropractors or acupuncturists.
Okay.
And so women could access, it almost became like a wellness center, but it started as a center for home birth midwives.
Okay.
Who were all eligible and endorsed. And there was like a specific group. And I guess the founder of this group had been very, very active in this space of pushing for recognition from the government and funding from the government.
Okay.
So that's where it all kind of came from, really. It was interesting watching the culture change, having been a home birther myself.
Uh-huh.
And then now I was a student midwife, and I was watching it and going, okay, I mean, I think this is a good idea because it's going to keep getting better, right?
So what were the red flags you were seeing, or what was or even the yellow flags? Like, what was
I
uneasy
guess
about it?
The boutiqueness of it.
Okay.
I thought, okay, yeah, we do want this to cater to every woman, but this is like, this seems to be missing the heart issue of making home birth midwifery available to everyone, meeting women where they're at, I guess, individualized care. These centers, it just, I don't know, something about it just felt a little bit different.
Okay.
It felt upmarket. It felt like it was, I don't know, maybe a bit more showy would be a good word for it.
Where it had been all about access.
It had been all about access. And now it's like, you know, look, we're so professional. And even like, you know, maybe home birth had been seen as crunchy up to that point.
Uh-huh.
And now it's like, oh, well, we cater to all the different crowds, and we have, it almost felt businessy.
Okay.
There you go.
It's a business now.
That's what it started to feel like. And there seemed to be a real cultural shift amongst midwives. There seemed to be this scramble for midwives to do these prescribing courses. Otherwise, they weren't going to be able to provide home birth services anymore. They needed to jump through the hoops so they could keep doing what they actually already had been doing. And I thought that was interesting as well. I thought, is this a good thing that they have to do all this extra training? Were they not good enough before?
Right.
Who says this will be better for mothers and families? I thought these midwives were great before.
Right.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And I guess as a student midwife who really had been expecting at some point to go into home birth, I thought, will I be able to do that?
Yeah.
So that's really probably where I want to go with that in my journey after becoming a midwife. But that's kind of what happened in Australia. It was a really interesting shift. And so I became a midwife at the end of 2015.
Okay.
I finished my degree. I knew already that I wouldn't be able to jump through the hoops for eligibility and endorsement. I thought, okay, well, what am I going to do with this? I need to like bunker down and put my head down and just get through what I need to get through so I can eventually go into home birth. So I did my graduate year at a little rural hospital because I thought working in the country would be great, right? And I very quickly found that policies, procedures, and guidelines. I remember getting raked over the coals one night for a woman that had been en route to another hospital. Actually, we had to close our doors to maternity. We were without a doctor, and so they decided that, you know, they have to close their doors for maternity. But a woman who was en route to another hospital actually ended up coming and giving birth, you know, quite quickly. She had a very straightforward tear that needed suturing. Mm-hmm. I was qualified to and had experience in suturing that tear, and I had another midwife that as a new graduate, even though I'd completed my degree, I said, would you just check for me and make sure that everyone's sort of happy. The woman really wanted me to suture it. She didn't want to go on to another hospital. She'd just given birth and she just wanted to rest. So she gave her consent for us to do that suturing. And the next morning I was pulled into a manager's office and screamed at. I was told that we didn't have a procedure for midwives to offer suturing, and it didn't matter if that I had experience and training in that area, that I could not use those skills in our hospital because there was no policy for it. There was no procedure for it. And I remember thinking, that's so strange because it's definitely what's best for the woman.
Right.
And so I very kindly asked my manager, okay, well, could you explain what I should have done instead? And she said, you should have put a pad on it, walked away, left it until the morning, and we'll take her to the operating room and repair it in theater the next morning.
Where you would have to debride it and
yes,
create
and I remember
not all
thinking,
of our listeners realize the issue of that, right?
Absolutely. And I remember thinking, wow, that's definitely not good care.
Right. Let's put her in a...
I don't think I'll ever do that. And I remember thinking, already I'm in trouble. And I can honestly say, hand on my heart, that was the beginning of a long history of being in trouble for things in my midwifery career in Australia.
Rebellious midwife, you.
I
caring
was.
For your women.
So, previously I had been a home birther and then gone into midwifery myself, and I had followed all these great pages and websites. I was a huge fan of Indie Birth, and I joke about it now. I've at least told Margot, maybe even told Marin, that I turned off I stopped following everyone. I stopped following every woman-centered, even remotely radical midwifery, birth, any kind of page, and thought, this is about survival.
Yeah.
And that really sort of led to where I am today. So those feelings that I felt at the beginning of my degree, at the beginning of my career in midwifery, just built and built and built. It became this like journey of like bearing really heavy burdens, I think. So I guess long before the mandate came out, it's interesting because the mandate came out September 11th last year, 2021. So exactly 20 years from 9/11. And so it's almost a year. And I would say for months prior to that, I would have conversations in the parking lot with colleagues. We would talk about things like having trouble sleeping at night, things we had seen, things we'd been involved in, things we had done in the name of policies and procedures and guidelines. And we would talk about, can we go underground? What will happen if we do go underground? What will happen if we deregister from opera? Will they come and find us? Will we get arrested? I think if you've really been a part of the home birthing story for a long time, you may even remember specific names of midwives from Australia that has even happened to. So we were having these conversations. So this was long before the mandate came out. It was getting to the point where these policies and procedures and guidelines were so restrictive that we were harming women and mothers. And it was becoming increasingly difficult having that weigh on your conscience or offering a debrief to mothers, knowing that you weren't actually being honest in the things that you said. So with all that being said, and coming to the US and seeing that there's this big push for like license all the states, I started to go, what are they doing?
Yeah. I just escaped that, right?
Why? Why are you asking for that? And do you know what it means?
They don't. What is like? That's why I want to do this podcast, because they don't understand what it means. We've got moms standing up asking for regulation on themselves, and
Absolutely.
They don't realize that's what they're asking for.
Yeah, I think as well, there's this thought that in some aspects physically it'll become easier. Like you won't have to jump through hoops to get things like Pitocin or things that I mean, it's funny what some people think as it. I guess practice over here is so different to Australia, because I know that midwives over here are still carrying around oxygen tanks and stuff like that. Some of these things blow my mind.
Yeah. So
Maybe
they don't do that in Australia?
No, they don't.
Oh,
Midwives
that's
haven't been
beautiful.
carrying around tanks of oxygen for a long time. It's not evidence-based.
It's not evidence-based.
Yeah, but I mean, that's probably a story for another podcast, really. But in terms of things like Pitocin, which we call oxytocin, or syntocin, synthetic oxytocin, okay, yeah, maybe you can get a script for that a little bit easier with licensing.
Right.
Really, within that, that's probably about it.
Right.
There's this idea that I keep seeing parading around on various social media pages that we need regulations for birth keepers and birth workers. And I'm going, okay, well, how is regulations going to help that, one? And two, is that our responsibility as midwives to ask for that? Why are we asking for regulations for ourselves in order so we can regulate them? Their practice is not our responsibility.
Right.
That's their responsibility, really, before God.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a used car salesman, you can be a really sleazy, dishonest one, or you could be a really honest one.
Yeah.
And it's not your responsibility, if you're a really honest one, to go around regulating the dishonest one. And it is, I don't believe it's our responsibility as midwives either to go around telling women who they should or shouldn't have at their birth. Yeah. That, unassisted birth is wrong, or that they shouldn't have a doula attend them, and that we're the only ones that should be attending them as licensed midwives, which is
what the OBs did to us.
Exactly.
It's exactly what the OBs did, when hospital took over birth.
And really what that has achieved in other countries is that in asking for regulation for everyone else, we're only just regulating ourselves and restricting the care that we are able to offer to women.
Yeah.
Which means that leaves women with no access to care in certain circumstances, and their only option to be going unassisted, which is the very thing that they think will be prevented.
Right. We were trying to make access to home birth larger, and it's actually creating more women having to have unassisted births in order to follow what they feel is best for themselves and their baby.
Yeah, we're looking to a policy, a procedure, and a guideline instead of looking at the individual woman, or listening to her, trusting what she needs, or trusting her body, or looking at the whole picture of her health history. And I think, as a midwife, I guess particularly, the worst of it, the absolute pinnacle of it came when the vaccine mandates came out, because then we weren't just mandated for our jobs. It came to a point where the government mandated us as midwives, even for home birth.
Right.
And I'll never forget the moment where a colleague said to me, "Hey, I've decided to have this baby at home." And I said to her, "Okay, well, call me if you need to." And she said, "Well, I won't, because you could get into far too much trouble for that. And I love you too much and would never do that to you." Mm. So it became this sacrifice of a client is more worried about my well-being than her needs as a pregnant and birthing woman.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I realized this is actually what it's come to. It's over. We can't even work as midwives at all anymore. That moment was so, so devastating for me. And I'm happy to report that she did have a beautiful free birth at home.
Wonderful.
And she FaceTimed me and showed me her baby and her healthy placenta after she gave birth. And my heart soared, and I was just so thankful for her friendship.
Yeah.
But also really, really sad that that's what it had come to. And I know as a result, as the years have gone on, the years that I thought that it was going to get better and better, what I saw was it got less and less. It meant there was less midwives, less home birth, more birth workers, more free births, more birth keepers, I should say.
Yeah.
Because they could provide care to women and we couldn't.
Yeah.
So is that what we want? Is that what we want?
Yeah.
Do we want that to be the end? And if a woman chooses to have a birth keeper for her home birth, then I'm so happy for her. But if that's her only option,
right,
because she would have loved to have had a midwife and can't, then I'm really sad about that.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about like a free birth or not a free, like if a woman wants to have a free birth, then have a free birth. More power to you. Like, do that. You were designed to. Awesome. It is the women that don't want that feel like that's their only option. And we as a society have set that up.
Absolutely.
In the name of more access.
Yeah. So it's such an oxymoron. You're sitting here going, wait, what? You're asking for regulation so we can give more. It's not going to work like that.
It doesn't work. It's a carrot on a stick type of idea of like, okay, well, please regulate us and tell us that we can do it in the name of safety or in the name of, like our own personal safety. Like, right? Like somebody has to come and babysit us so that we can give good care to women as if they aren't smart enough to decide who they want to care for them.
Absolutely. And, I think for me personally, like I didn't leave behind midwifing, and I legit was midwifing with the government, for the government. I mean, that was actually my job. I was, in fact, a government midwife. And I know for a lot of, being in the U.S., it would probably be difficult to understand what that looked like.
We don't have the same type of health care.
No.
But it is not the same, but the regulation is, right?
Yeah.
Or what they're asking for in many states.
Yeah. So I guess the I don't midwife with the government is really more of a heart issue. I did actually write a little bit of a brain dump about it. So I will
please tell us what that means to you.
I will. I wrote, this is not a cute hashtag. This is not a marketing gimmick. This is not a dramatic statement to draw on the reader. This is not a ploy to gain more followers. This is a confession. This is an apology. This is a testimony. And this is a promise. A promise to turn away and not continue on the same destructive path I once was on. This is a heart issue. This is not just a promise to women and families, but to myself. No more nights laying awake and trying to justify what I just saw and even what I felt I was partaking in. This is a turning away and a cultural shift. This is a choice to never justify poor and disrespectful care again. This is a promise to women, to meet women where they are at, to not answer to committees or bow down to regulatory agencies when something feels and is, in fact, unethical. I guess I liken this for me, that it's kind of like a conversion experience. Yeah. This is a repentance. This is a repentance in saying, I won't do that again. I am turning away and choosing a different path. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to do that. And I guess I would, respectfully just caution midwives to really think about the impacts of this and really look at others' experiences in different states and also in different countries. Thanks, Suri. Yeah, so I guess this whole what I explained to a few of my friends that I was hanging out with last weekend was that this isn't. I sort of became known when I got here in midwifery circles, like, oh, Hannah, the midwife from Australia. She lost her job due to the vaccine mandates, which is all true, right? But it's actually not really the I guess the full background story of who I am as a midwife. And I guess this whole campaign of I don't midwife with the government and these feelings of turning away and repenting from the kind of midwifery that I practiced in is. So I think it's just, so important to address that. And I'm excited about the campaign, figuring out how to design some more t-shirts. I had a lot of interest.
These shirts are amazing.
So I am working on those, and I'm a little bit, I guess, lacking on the technology side of things, but currently my business page is like Sovereign Heart Midwifery, and for me that name goes hand in hand, I guess, with my experiences of midwifing with the government too. You know, I felt this strong pull to the word sovereign as a midwife. You can't find your...
I can't find my charger.
Oh no.
Okay.
I don't know what you want to do.
Just keep going.
Keep talking.
Yeah.
So I really felt this strong pull to that name, and this real, I guess, calling to. I don't want to be going around rallying in the same way that I did, or to be preventing other people for asking for these things if they've really truly considered the cost and they have such a passion for it. But I do just think it's so important to, I guess, have an awareness and a sense of discernment, which I think is so important in this day and age.
Important. It's so important. And I am just so thankful for the campaign and for your conversion first.
Yeah,
like
me too.
For the, like, on the micro or the macro, on the macro of, I said it right, on the micro of you, like your individual journey. And then now you're taking it to the macro of like saying, okay, let me put awareness of this thing that I've watched and was a part of, and like coming out from, you know, really like from behind enemy lines, right?
Yeah.
Like I saw it, I fought for it, and then I saw it, and then I saw what it really meant.
Yeah.
And now I come to the US and see you guys trying to go down the same, and honestly, we are in so many spaces. So many states have done that, and there's so many of the big push and all of these fights for this regulation.
And I think it's really this idea that we're going to fix some kind of systemic culture,
right?
That there'll be this kind of like great licensed midwife club, and we'll all be super supportive, and Pitocin will be flowing, and anybody who wants an oxygen tank, you know, we could have a little party together, and it won't feel so underground, but actually, you know, being quiet and humble and continuing the work that we're called to do as midwives is really what we're here for. Yeah. And we're not here, you know, if you find a group of like-minded midwives and you have a little club with them, that's great. Yeah. But really, we were never all called to be on the same page. We were never all called to practice the same way. And if you want to practice with policies, procedures, and guidelines and say no to certain women based on what you believe their risk level is, or how that falls into the policy that you are choosing to use, then go ahead and do that. Yeah. But if you don't, and if you want to increase access so that every woman is seen as an individual based on their health history and the bigger picture, and not boxed into
the one that actually gets to make the decisions.
Yeah. Well, then do that. So if you want to regulate, then regulate yourself. Work in collaboration with, you know, I guess, I don't know, a group of midwives that all feel the same way. Work in collaboration. Regulate yourselves.
Right. Have your own practice protocols.
Absolutely.
Why are we asking the government to tell us how to handle?
Yeah. Why do we need to get a regulatory body to come in to do that? We can do that. Yeah. But if women want to access other people's, and I'm not saying I haven't seen some things that have concerned me in others' practice, but I certainly probably saw the same level of that in Australia, even with our strict licensing requirements, you know. And just for the record, I did decide to deregister from APRA myself. I realized that it was not serving me in any way, shape, or form. I do not want to confess to them every year to renew my registration, which is what I'm supposed to do. It feels like a confession every year. Yeah. What have I been involved in? What have I been doing? No, I have not been doing that. Yes, I have been practicing here. And I thought, you know what?
Wow, that's
this does
really-
not serve me or women anymore, and I don't
Yeah.
actually need this anymore to be a midwife. So I just respectfully clicked on the little box that said, I choose not to renew. And it was a real conscious decision. It was another, part of my testimony.
Yeah.
It is like giving up a bad habit.
Giving up a
It
bad
also,
habit.
on the flip side, meant that I felt like I wasn't part of the club anymore. And I had a few tears about that.
Yeah.
It was a sense of loss, even though it was a conscious decision and well-informed decision to do so.
Feels lonely.
It felt lonely. Yeah, it really did. And that's because you get taught how important that club is. You have this huge responsibility to other midwives, but you have an even bigger responsibility to your governing body, which your governing body, your health service, which was Queensland Health, right? You are a representative of Queensland Health, and you better watch what you say, and you better watch what you do, and you better follow all these.
So like gang mentality and cult-like, and
it was,
like,
it was, and I used to feel such a heaviness there. I mean, like, I really would call it spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
This sense of heaviness, this sense of darkness, this knowing that you're doing something wrong and you keep doing it anyway because
that's what the policy said to do.
And you'll be in trouble if you don't.
Yeah.
You'll be pulled into the manager's office if you did this, if you respected a woman's decision to give birth in the bath when she fell outside of the guidelines from that and you didn't ask them to, if you couldn't get them into the shower in time instead, like it was just, if you couldn't get a good, continuous monitoring trace. I don't know what you guys call it here, but here, over there, we call it a CTG. If you couldn't get, a really good, clear trace because they were in their shower, well, then you better offer to put, a fetal scalp electrode on them. And you better believe it. They're going to want you to call it a clip. I couldn't even do it justice talking about exactly what that kind of practice looked like in an hour-long podcast.
Yeah.
But I'm really grateful for the opportunity. And I think a few of the midwives here say they could never believe that I was one of those midwives.
Yeah, it's amazing to even think about, like, I don't know, you having to, that you practiced in that way, but then also like from a trauma-informed and like survivor like brain, and like I've worked with so many survivors and of some severe trauma, and I just think about like you having to turn off all of the truth you believed in so that you could do it's like you just went into survivor mode. Like you're just like, okay, this is what I have to do in order to serve women. I just have to keep my head down and close off the hopeful messages and close off the in order to do this.
The older midwives,
I have such compassion for that you had to do that.
The older midwives would call that mentality growing a thicker skin.
Yeah.
They used to say when you were a student midwives, you'll need to grow a thicker skin. I wouldn't say that I ever grew a thicker skin. I certainly, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to.
Thank you for not becoming hardened.
I wouldn't have ever been able to go from backslidden to
backslider.
renewing my faith, I guess. If I had completely grown a thicker skin, if I had gotten all calloused and what I did do was I went into survivor mode and I did compartmentalize and I did cry a lot. I cried. I debriefed. I'll never forget the moment when, I did decide that I was going to be leaving the country. You know, I guess going to back to that, once we lost our jobs, we did end up having to make a decision to sell our house before we were going to lose that. So we did sell our home and we did jump on a plane. But prior to that happening, I was reaching out to a midwifery friend who I studied with. We both were at doing the same degree and we were doing it at the same time. And I called her, and I won't say her name here because she's very much also practicing underground. I called her and I said, who did we used to follow?
Who is that?
I need help. I need to reach out to midwives who are on the same page. And she was like, all right, let's see. We used to follow Indie Birth, right? Indie Birth. There's Dr. Stu. Maybe you can follow him and find some midwives. I was like, that's right, Indie Birth. And it's funny because the midwifery community that I've met here is actually, I found them through reaching out to Margot and saying, hey, I'm an Australian midwife and this is what I'm doing. And she was just so kind to me. So I'll forever be grateful that, even though I became institutionalized and put blinkers on and went, okay, what do I need to do to get through? That at the back of my mind, I filed away some of those people who I knew were on the same page.
Right.
And they were
Found
there for
your
me
way
in
back
my
to
time
us
of need.
all.
Yeah. So thanks for being a part of that, Lauren.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have met you and to just hear the whole story.
Yeah.
Where, it's just a beautiful thing to see you shining. Like, you just shine. And you're just such a joy to be around. And I'm so glad that the Lord has brought you here and is starting this new season for you. And I'm just delighted.
It's been such a journey, a real faith journey. And we prayed incessantly that doors would open and doors would close. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, that morning making the decisions that, we were going to have to leave Australia.
Yeah.
And Joel going, hey, this is going to be all you. You're going to have to do your midwifery thing. And so figure out what it is that you need to do and lean on some doors and pray about it and see what God opens. And it's been truly incredible watching, doors have opened and doors have definitely closed.
Yeah.
And it's still very much continuing. I guess I'm still, I've been here since April. I'm still very much finding my feet, I guess, learning about the midwifery community here. Lots of things are different, having great conversations, particularly surrounding things like GBS screening, which I think is such a strange thing. It's not something we do in Australia. It's not routine. No. It hasn't been for a long time.
Wow, I love that.
How crazy is that? And you certainly would never find a home birth midwife that would do it over in Australia. We don't even do it in the hospital system. And oxygen tanks. I remember even, moving up to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
My home birth midwife said, we don't have to do oxygen anymore. It's actually not evidence-based. It's much more effective to do effective ventilation with breaths.
Right.
In resuscitation than carrying around oxygen. And I'm going, okay, well, that's one less thing I'll have to hire as the birthing woman.
Like, actually pretty unsafe to be using.
Oxygen is a medicine and you don't use it lightly. So many different things that I'm learning, but also generating incredible conversation, I think, incredible respectful conversation, I might add, amongst midwives about the differences in practice in Australia and here.
Yeah.
And, I'm obviously coming from a hospital viewpoint of what I saw in the hospital over there, which is just...
For the American, because most of our listeners are in the U.S.
Of course.
What you did in Australia was almost comparable to like a CNM more so then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean...
Which would be a certified nurse midwife. But were you actually a nurse then?
No,
or did you have
I was not
nurse
a nurse.
Training?
Yeah.
More of a CPM
I was a
training,
registered midwife. So very similar to what they have in England and in New Zealand now. So all midwives, for the most part, not all, there's still a couple of courses here and there that will offer dual training. But for the majority of midwifery degrees, it's now direct entry. And that then they do pretty much your first year is basic nursing skills. And then that sort of crosses over into more midwifery focused for the final 2 years of your degree. So you certainly have nursing skills
CNM more than it is a CPM training.
I was trained to, if I worked in a small rural hospital, to go and help out on the main ward if I didn't have any clients on the midwifery ward. So if we were having a quiet night, we may help do vitals. So I could care for actual sick patients.
Right.
And that was still considered within my scope of practice.
Gotcha.
So no, while I didn't have a nursing degree, I guess I could work as a, I don't know what would be the equivalent over here, but I could certainly work on the ward, helping them with various things, simple medications and doing vitals and antibiotics and things like that were within my scope of practice as a midwife. I could also use in general nursing. So yeah, it would be similar to a certified nurse midwife.
Okay. Yeah.
In terms of, I think, what I was qualified to do.
Gotcha.
But not
Sounds
recognized
similar.
over here, and
But
certainly
not-
never want to go back to that.
Right. Did you do much home birth there?
So home birth was so heavily regulated
That you didn't.
that I really felt like I could never jump through those hoops.
Gotcha.
I attended a few home births as a second midwife. So part of that licensing requirements in Australia meant that there always had to be 2 registered midwives at every home birth.
Okay.
So sometimes there were home birth midwives that would be looking for a second midwife, and you didn't have to jump through all those same hoops if you were the backup midwife.
Gotcha.
So I did a couple of those and felt so incredibly privileged.
Yeah.
But that was really the only capacity. And then, once I actually went into home birth after I lost my job due to the mandates. I actually found a home birth midwife that had already jumped through the hoops to practice as a eligible and endorsed home birth midwife. And about 3 weeks after we went into practice together, we got mandated as home birth midwives too.
Of course.
So it was pretty relentless, actually, over in Australia. And that also just made me realize that once you are in the pockets with the government like that, you cannot be autonomous. You cannot, you have to do as you are told.
Yeah.
You have to be obedient, or else you'll be in trouble. And that trouble looks like really concerning things when you have seen other midwives being viciously reported to the hospitals, and APRA reviewing their registration and putting bans on them being able to practice for X amount of time while they review those situations, and it could be as simple as being willing to care for a woman who's having a VBAC too, or even just a VBAC, depending on the hospital's guidelines, policies, and procedures that you transfer to if that's needed.
Wow. Well, I don't know. I don't even know where to go from there. It's just so heavy.
It is heavy.
And I'm really glad that you've broken free from that.
Yeah.
And hope that we can continue to spread the message to not midwife with the government.
I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so, not that anybody gave me the platform, because I just went ahead and did it anyway.
Yeah.
But even being given the opportunity to speak on this platform, I'm just so thankful for the opportunity, and I feel really honored.
Yeah. So to wrap up, what would be, like, if you could tell all of our listeners anything, like, what would you like to leave them with?
I guess I haven't touched on this part, but I guess just start being nice to each other.
Right.
Stop fighting about these things.
Yeah.
Even make friends with the birth keepers.
Yeah.
Talk to them. Really think about the women who you are, the families that you are providing care for.
Yeah.
Be collaborative. Work together. Share resources.
Yeah.
If you have a birth keeper in your area and you have concerns about their practice, why don't you ask them about them? Why don't you provide reflective practice to each other?
Yeah.
Why can't we have respectful conversations without asking any regulatory bodies to do that for us?
Yeah.
I think that would be my biggest, because I've seen that can happen. Mm-hmm. I've seen that, I guess the way so many of us banded together when things went down in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
and, if you want a club, go and find one.
Right.
Go and find your
Build your tribe.
midwifery. Yeah, go and find your midwifery group that's like-minded, and hold each other accountable, and be accountable to God,
Yeah.
Ask for his guidance, be accountable to your families that you're caring for, be honest and transparent, and be kind and loving like we're called to, be transparent in the services that you offer and keep offering them.
So good.
Stop asking permission to offer those services.
Stop asking permission to offer services.
Yeah, that would definitely be my take-home message. And buy a shirt and make a commitment to not midwife with the government.
Yes.
And let's stop asking for things that we don't want, and that come with repercussions that we already know can happen. And make your priority the women that you care for. Make your priority your client.
Yeah. I would love, we also have so many listeners that are the birthing women.
Yeah.
And what would you say to them as they are, preparing for birth?
One, don't go rally around looking for a midwife. That is midwifing with the government.
Yeah.
I would say keep seeking out the midwives that are looking to you as an individual, that do respect you as a woman and a mother who is autonomous and who can make good decisions for their care and listen to what it is that they need in their care. And I guess what's the right word? Again, be accountable as, look for the midwife, I guess, that is accountable to you.
Yeah.
That is respecting your requests, your wishes, and that is truly listening to your needs. And maybe that isn't a part of one of those big clubs.
Those big clubs.
Maybe that could be a red flag.
Yeah.
And really listen to your intuition in who you ask to partner with you in your birthing, your pregnancy and your birthing journey.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for
sharing
listening.
Your story. So Brooke and I normally end on a prayer. Not to put you on the spot, would you like to pray for our listeners and our country and Australia?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Father in heaven, Lord, I just thank you so much for your goodness to us, Lord. I thank you for the experiences that I've had, for the midwives I've met. And I thank you for the women that I've served that have taught me so many incredibly valuable and even challenging lessons at times, where I've really had to be humble and ask for forgiveness, Lord. I thank you so much for this beautiful podcast. I thank you for the women that are listening. I pray blessings on the pregnant and birthing women that are listening to this podcast. I pray for, for them to feel heard and respected in their journeys, Lord. And I pray for the midwives that could be listening to, who may not be on the same page. I pray that they would just consider and listen, and Lord, that they would be accountable to you, I guess, in that whole experience, Lord. And I also pray for the midwives who are on the same page, who have been working alongside of women, listening, supporting, and sometimes finding that experience really challenging. I pray for the midwives that have found it difficult to find others who are like-minded and who may feel isolated. I pray that you would come alongside of them and ease their loneliness and bring valuable people into their lives, whether that may be birth keepers or doulas or friends that can help them with their reflection, or opportunities to debrief, or different perspectives on caring for clients. I pray that we would all check our hearts and really make sure that they are in alignment with you, Lord. I pray that we would seek you first and foremost. And I thank you for Lauren and Brooke and for the beautiful podcast that they created, and what a special platform it is. And I pray that blessings upon them and their families. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Holy Wild Birth. We hope that you were genuinely encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. If you're loving what you hear, please make sure that you share it. Leave reviews. That helps other mamas find this content as well. And don't forget to read the show notes, okay? Because that's where you can find our email address if you want to reach out to us and start a conversation. It's also where you'll find free offerings as well as invitations to work with me and or Lauren. We can't wait to get to know you. See you next week.